They really have helped make this so much more special than other conferences have been, because they've been so attentive and wonderful. So thank you so much. So on to the final afternoon of the final day of the BASES Conference 2021 Summer Conference at the Barge. And I'm delighted to be welcoming our speaker back to the stage from yesterday. There are a lot of people that were here yesterday and heard what Sophia had to say. I'll just check with Miles that we're ready to rock and roll with Sophia and her mic and her PowerPoint and all of the things that made her talk yesterday so special. There'll be several people actually in the audience that I see that weren't here yesterday. And this talk, for all of our merriment this afternoon, all of the wonderful new friendships that have been made, and the long lunch that we've had, and all the drinks that we've had, and it's a Sunday, and we've got the football tonight. If you're into tribal ritual stuff, we've got the football. But this talk yesterday did trigger a lot of emotions in a lot of people. It covers a lot of subjects, satanic ritual abuse being one, baby trafficking being another. It's so many things that Sophia touched on yesterday, and I know that you all want to hear in more detail. That's exactly what she's going to do in the next hour and a bit. We'll then have a break, and she will take what I know will be considerable questions from the audience afterwards. So I think we are okay. Sophia, you happy? Would you like to take your place on the podium? And we will take away the afternoon, a very special last afternoon on what's been a very, very special weekend. I can't believe we started on effectively Thursday night rigging up here, and it's now Sunday afternoon. But as I've been mentioning all weekend, when your vibration is high and where you are where you're meant to be, time flies. And I think that's been the case for all of this weekend and today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Sophia, who's going to elaborate on what she talked about yesterday. And then we'll have some questions later this afternoon. Sophia, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming today and thank you, Miles, for arranging and organising this, and thank you to the BASES Pub for holding this event for us. I'm going to probably start from the beginning like I did yesterday, because some people weren't here yesterday. So, my name is Sophia, and I was trafficked as a baby for a debt. My father, my natural father, is actually a millionaire, and he is an MP, I think, or a councillor. I don't know if he won the election or not. He inherited the family company, which was a concrete company and a pork farm as well. The factory for the concrete company was in Amersham, Buckinghamshire, which is now a Tesco. So you can go to Amersham and view Tesco in Amersham, and that's where the factory was. The pork factory, was where Tesco is now. The concrete factory was more Great Missenden and in the Buckinghamshire area. They have a lot of gravel pits around, and gravel pits in the Reading area and Thiel. So the pork factory got sold to Wall's Sausages, and the concrete factory got sold to, I think, Ready Mix, and has now gone to Blue Circle Cement. So anyway, I was born in Africa, and it was on a baby farm. There are many baby farms in Africa for this very purpose. White children, black children, it doesn't really matter. So I was born on this baby farm. It was an African village. It was Swaziland, which I cannot remember how to pronounce the new name for Swaziland, but back then it was Swaziland. And during the 60s and 70s, there was apartheid, so I had to be in a more freer country, which Swaziland was. So you could get away with more in Swaziland, for example. I'm not saying the king of Swaziland knew what was going on, but there are other countries in Africa where this baby farms are. The reason I know about the baby farm is because my lawyer employed a private detective, and in South Africa. He was part of the South African police, and he became a private detective. I do not know if he's still alive. I'm not going to mention his name here, because I don't have his permission. But he investigated my birth certificate, my registration of birth at the British consulate in South Africa, and he said, your birth certificate is a fraud. The clinic where you were supposedly born in never existed, even during apartheid. So it kind of proved that it was all a bit false. So anyway, going from Swaziland, now I do remember being in this village. I remember the huts and the thatch roofs. In South Africa, they're called rondavels, or they're like a rondavel, which is a round clay building with a thatch roof. And that's usually that's the usual setup for it. So from there, I was transferred to the handover day to a couple who had purchased me. Now, this couple, my father, that I was told was my father, is actually my uncle. He is a brother of this very rich man I've just mentioned, the eldest child of the family who owned the concrete and the pork farm. So he was the youngest brother of the whole family. There were 4 children in that family. In that family, their parents, my grandfather, he came from a family of 10. My great-grandparents owned a shop in Amersham, and that's where they started doing pork pies. They came from Ireland, so I've been told. So anyway, that was the basis of that. So the 10 children there, I think one of them died from very strange illness. After much investigating, I then discovered it was almost linked to Jan-Krachol's disease, which is like CJD, mad cow disease. And he seemed to have passed away from his 10 children. Some other children didn't survive, so we were left with two women and 2 men. Those 2 men, the 2 brothers, took over the pork pie shop that was in Amersham, and they built it up into the pork factory and the concrete factory. And during the Second World War, they rebuilt High Wycombe from the bombing. So got a big grant from the government for rebuilding High Wycombe after the Second World War from the bombing. So that's how they made their millions there. The pork, now I've found out, is like was a cover for more nefarious dealings. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. So then we've got like the family with the 10 children. They were the Brazil family. Now, they're the Brazils, and basically the connection there is Ireland. The male, he came from Ireland. The woman, who's my great-great-grandmother, she came from London. Now, so my great-great-grandfather, he was a Brazil, who came from Ireland, met her and they got married, that type of thing. So there is an important point for that, of me mentioning Ireland and that name. So I'm now living with this couple who are now passing off as my parents. When you've got a baby and you're trying to prove to a baby that you're their parents, it doesn't take much. If the baby's a year, maybe 3, the baby will forget the original parents. So it's very easy to tell a child, no matter how old, oh, we're your mum and dad. So that's how easy it is to do that. We know about adopting children. Eventually the child will forget. So anyway, my parents, I'll call them that, the adopted parents, we moved to Tidmarsh from South Africa to England. to the rich uncle, my father, to his house while our house they prepared our house to move into in Whitchurch-on-Thames. So I lived in Tidmarsh, where a lot of abuse started there. Ritual abuse, sexual abuse, that type of thing, in that house, by my natural father and by my adoptive father and my adoptive mother. Now, as I've said, my rich father, the MP, stroke councillor, he is a Freemason, and probably more. He belonged to the Monday Diners Club. Now, you may say, well, Monday Diners Club. Well, it's a cover. There is a Monday Diners Club, and people can join at a price. You just have to sort of question what they're serving at the Monday Dining Club. He was a chairman, I think, of that, and I think he was a member of Rotary and Lions as well, and I'm not putting down either of those groups, but, you know, and so anyway, we moved into Tidmarsh. As I said, there was abuse happening there. So I was I think I was 4. I was told I was 3 when we came here. I could have been 6, because I don't know when I was born. I could have been born in the 60s. So anyway, officially, we arrived in the UK in 1976. I was officially born in 1973, but I think I was born in 1960-something. Anyway, we moved from Tidmarsh into the house in Whitchurch-on-Thames. Now, Whitchurch-on-Thames is a beautiful country English village, church, little shop, lovely, beautiful houses, very expensive houses, and it was a very expensive area. So you'd think, okay, a church, yeah, village shop, that type of thing, a little town over the bridge, you know, all beautiful. That town, that village, was where Kenneth Grahame lived, who wrote Wind in the Willows. Toad of Toad Hall is actually Hardwick House in Whitchurch. And the river scene and everything, there is a lane in Whitchurch called Sheepwash Lane, where he based the river parts of the book. Toad was the lord of the manor, and it was that lord of the manor was Toad, that character. Kenneth Grahame lived in a house in the town where the local jail was, in the garden. Now, the reason I mention that is because there's many a time I spent in that house, in that garden with the jail. It was just used as a shed, supposedly, the local jail. I'm not saying Kenneth Grahame was there, but it was the people who lived there now, nowadays, they were part of the group who abused me. So we're living in this house in Whitchurch-on-Thames. I attended the Whitchurch Primary School, which I do believe there was a lot of, it was a time before Ofsted, and it was a time when, in the 70s, when education was very different to now. So this school had no school uniforms. They had a kind of very 70s attitude towards education, which was sort of free and easy, that type of thing. Whether we agree with it now is another matter, but what I'm saying is there was like a very small classes. Now, each class I was in at that school, I knew the children, and their parents were part of the group, part of the abuse group, shall I say. This group was international. A lot of celebrities were members of this group. They used to come in. They didn't live in the village. Jimmy Savile was a member of the group. A lot of the abuse that I suffered, the ritual satanic abuse, was in the grounds of Hardwick House. And in the grounds of Hardwick House, for example, there's a bear pit. That was used for a lot of the ritual abuse, sacrificing, that type of thing. Because the bear pit had chains on the walls. It was open air, it was no roof. I don't think people can go to it now, because I don't think it's safe. But if you can imagine a bear pit, there's cages built into the building, as it were. So yes, so abuse happened there. There was a kind of altar table in the middle of this bear pit, excuse me, where a lot of abuse happened. That sacrifices happened there. They used that table, stone table, in the middle of this bear pit. And they used to keep the children that were going to be up for abuse or sacrifice in the cages where the bears would have been. Obviously, there's no bears now. I remember the church. They used the church a lot for a lot of rituals, that type of thing. They would use the altar, the font, because it was a stone font like any other English church. And they used a stone font to put the blood into, to do the initiating people into the cult or something. They drink from it, that type of thing. So it's almost like a mock Christian ceremony, only sadistic and satanic. You could call it satanic. But that's what they do with the blood and put it into the font to initiate people into the group, that type of thing. The altar is used, again, for sacrificing children, mainly children, or young virgins. They were put onto the altar in this church. There are two churches in Whitchurch. You've got the Whitchurch down the hill, and then up the hill you've got Whitchurch Hill, and the other church is up the hill. So the vicar, who was a member of the group, and as I say, with a lot of these celebrities, Jimmy Savile, I can't mention the other celebrities right now because they're still alive, MPs, celebrities, lords, ladies, that type of thing. So up the hill is the other church where a lot of abuse happened there as well, because the vicar was the vicar for both churches. So they did alternate sort of things each week. One Sunday it was here, one Sunday it's there, for normal Sunday services, Christian Sunday services. So then, so in the church down the hill, where I live, down the hill, there was a crypt, as there are in a lot of churches, and a lot of, if you go in there, you can't see it. You have to go behind the church, behind the scenes, and it's behind a door, and then you go down some steps, and it's like I call it a crypt, or like some churches have, or a priest's bolt hole, maybe, from way back in the day. But there was a tunnel system from that church going up to the hill to the other church, and then going to the River Thames, which then leads to London. And then it goes to Henley, Windsor, all along there. So Hardwicke House, Queen Elizabeth I stayed in Hardwicke House, and it's a well-known fact that when she went to, because you know how she used to go around the country just taking over houses as she went on her boat trips. So she decided to go and stay in Hardwicke House, I don't know for how long, a month or something, and they had to put in a new fireplace for her. So that's kind of the story. And so, she stayed in Hardwicke House, and inevitably she probably stayed along around Berkshire and Oxfordshire while she was there. So basically, this group, they were into amateur dramatics, they were into amateur filmmaking. My adoptive father, he was into amateur photographer, but stroke professional. He used to do baby pictures, baby portraits for a living, and he also used to make amateur films to enter into competitions. And people might say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, nothing. The fact that the material that he would use for these things were very nefarious. I mean, for one film, he wrote it, and it was all about the Marquis de Sade. I don't know if you know anything about the Marquis de Sade, but he wrote a play about him. The family of the Marquis de Sade wants to distance themselves from him. The word sadistic comes from Marquis de Sade. So he wrote this play about him. I was cast in that play as the mistress of the Marquis de Sade while he was in prison. Now, he'd say, okay, we got first prize at the Wallingford Drama Festival for that, and Wokingham, I think. And also, the thing with sadistic, well, with psychopaths is, and people in these nefarious things, they'll always tell people what they're doing in full sight. We've seen this over the years. Now, that's why I think, and also that's the way this man would think. Now, the other thing is, he wrote another film, which was called Blood Money, and it was about a witch who, during the Civil War, and I was cast in that play as a witch. I was hung, and then I was meant to come back to life and sacrifice a child. The child I sacrificed, not in real life, it was all mock, was my brother. So I sacrificed him with a knife, and they filmed that. They also filmed my hanging, and you could say, okay, but that's, what message is he trying to, what's he saying, kind of thing? Because actually, during the abuse, I would be made to do stuff, the sacrifices. A lot of people, children who are in these situations, are forced to sacrifice something. So, because I remember doing it, so actually when I was doing it in the film, it seemed very natural for me. Obviously, when I was sacrificing things, I was drugged up, I was unaware, and I didn't do it of my own agreement at all. If anything, it was all under threat. So, like, if you don't do it, you'll die, or whatever, or kill your pet. So that was, I've now jumped around, sorry. So there was an amateur dramatics group, was a cover for the snuff movies that they would make, the pornography that they were making and passing around like they do. We know they do, and it's on the dark web. And so this man, was my father was he filmed it. The rest of the group took part in it. Now I get to this. You see, I think this man, filmed the snuff movie that James Casbolt mentioned. He said there was a snuff movie. He mentioned it, and I have a feeling that the group, my father, probably filmed that. So anyway, so there's the amateur dramatics group, the amateur filmmaker group. There was so they made another film. He had Kenneth Branagh in it, but he was only 19, so he was starting off in his acting career. I have no idea if Kenneth Branagh had anything to do with the group, but I'm just saying he was 19. A lot of BBC cameramen were members of the film group. He would come along and film the amateur films, and they were also, and sound men, they were also part of the group. So they would do the amateur stuff, and then they'd film the nefarious stuff, the pornography. I think they took the cameras from the BBC or borrowed them, and the sound equipment, and they used the editing as well. But it was the BBC, because there was a lot of connections to the BBC. Now, I have been to the police about the BBC. I have been to the police about Jimmy Savile, and I'll get to this in a minute. So if you say, well, why not go to the police? I did. I wasn't believed. So I'm not going again. So anyway, so the concrete part of this, they supplied a lot of concrete to the military. They supplied a lot of, as I said, they rebuilt High Wycombe and Amersham after the war. But then they supplied concrete to the military bases all around Berkshire, Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, southeast of England, basically. The pork, where they supplied pork products to the whole of the southeast of England and I think the southwest in the shops. Now, the thing with the concrete is they were supplying concrete for tunnels. I was taken to these tunnels. These tunnels were military, because there are military tunnels. There are civilian tunnels, everywhere. And there's also old tunnels that were put there, many, many years ago. So they supplied concrete for the whole of UK. They supplied concrete for these tunnels, that type of thing, and the pork. Now, as I said, the pork was a cover for the ritual sacrifices that they were doing. Now, they were not only doing child trafficking, basically having children sold off to rich families, that type of thing. They were also supplying children for every sort of group, satanic group around the country, around the world, and they were supplying children for that. Now, they also supplied adrenochrome, which was usually in little vials, a bit like when you have food colouring, those little tiny bottles and things. Now, if you're shipping stuff around the world, you just need to you can put anything on a crate or a box, and maybe the customer's next size wouldn't even bother looking. So if people ask, well, how do they get this all around? How do you get all these children around? Well, these tunnels they had they had a very high-speed train system that went underground. It was magnetic. It was a magnetic kind of engine type thing. And these tunnels, as I said, these high-speed train systems, all I can describe is magnetic, would go, across the country, like in 5 minutes or something. I wouldn't know, because when I was on these trains, carriages, whatever you want to call it, there was no windows, so you would be sitting in the cubicle, and it would be like the seats sitting. You'd have seats facing each other, opposite each other, and then the wall of the carriage, I call it a carriage, there were like carry cots, with seat belts, and then you had the little seats for the little children, and then you had the seats, facing this way and that way. These trains, these magnetic train things, would go through tunnels under the water. They could lift up out of the sky, into the sky, because they couldn't always go on land, or they'd have to fly up above the ocean. So, but with me being in these cubicle things, I'm going to call it that, it was like there were no windows, so you couldn't see what was outside, type of thing. You wouldn't know if you were under the water, or if you were in the sky, or in space, or whatever. So that was happening there. Yes, I did go on these train things. So going back to the concrete, yes. So the military used Brazil concrete for the laser weapon. I was told it was a laser weapon. The name of it is Kitty. Now, I don't know if there's any disclosure about what lasers the military are using, but we all know it was called Kitty. Their lasers would also, there was laser machines that would make the tunnels. It wasn't like how we dig tunnels now with these cumbersome machines that bore through the rock. These were lasers. They would cut through the rock that way. So that's how they managed to do it. There's no noise. There's no noise with the trains, and there's no noise with the boring through the rock. They also use lasers to protect the tunnels. So if anyone who was not meant to be there would be a laser that would just disintegrate whoever it is or whatever it is that's walking through the tunnel, trying to get through it. So anyway, we go to the pork. So as I said, they were making adrenochrome. because basically child trafficking, adrenochrome, that type of thing is worth a lot of money. It's worth more, I think, than arms and drugs. It's taken over arms and drugs now. And so basically this is how they made so much money. This is how my father, my natural father, is a millionaire. And his father and his uncle, my great uncle. If you wanted to check my great uncle, his girlfriend wrote a book about him. It's called John Brazel, and I don't know if it's still in print. You may get it. It's not a very big book or anything. So he never got married. Now he was the master of the hunt in that area. He just died of a heart attack, nothing unusual with his passing, but he was a very rich man. He lived at the mill, it's called the Mill in Amersham, and he owned that, and you could call it a mansion. My grandfather, he built his house. I think his son knocked it down. It could still be there. So if you did go into Amersham, you would see the mill where the family would spend time there, that type of thing. They even built a swimming pool, concrete swimming pool in the garden of there. Now, he was a master of the hunt. Now you think, okay, it was fox hunting. Yeah, when they could do fox hunting. Not only that, they would also do human hunting. So the family were very into hunting, foxes and things, but then they would also do the human hunts, hunting children, that type of thing. And as I said, there was a bear pit in Whitchurch. They would have the children in cages, the bear cages as it were, and then release them. And then the hunt would chase these children to terrify them. It was all part of the sport. So that's how it links to the hunting, fox hunting, and also the human hunting. So when on these hunts, it would be, the group, many people in the group would be enjoying that type of thing. Royalty were also there as well. And then, so you've got the hunting thing. Now, my adoptive father was born in Cornwall. He was born in Looe, Cornwall. Now, in Looe, Cornwall, the family had a clinic. They had an abortion clinic, which was a nursing home for unwed mothers back in the day. Cornwall is very, very important for them because they had the abortion clinic in Cornwall, and then they also had the factories of concrete there, that type of thing. And obviously, my adoptive father was born there, and so it was very. They used to go to St. Michael's Mount for rituals as well. So I would spend time in Cornwall at the rituals, as it were, and satanic rituals, that type of thing. Because of the ley lines, they would do it near the ley lines in Cornwall, like St. Ives, that type of thing. There was also tunnel systems going from Cornwall out to sea. So that was, I don't know why Cornwall's so important, but it's something to do with the tin, you've got the tin mines to do with the stone underground, that type of thing. I think it's a lot of quartz in Cornwall. So a lot of energy, that type of thing. Now, as I say, it's satanic ritual abuse. Satanic ritual abuse, it was very like Eyes Wide Shut, the film, where the people were wearing, with masks, and it was very like that film. And so people like Jimmy Savile, he was like a high priest or something. The men were lower than the women. The women were higher than the men. So the men would become their slaves. The men would be chained up to the wall. They would be naked. They were doing it in enjoyment. They would be naked, they would be servants to the women. The women were the high queens, the high priestesses, that type of thing. And, you know, it was all part of very well, S&M, that type of thing. They would also have the children to be sexually abusing the children and sacrificing them. So people might say, well, why would they use so many children? Well, they'd have sexual gratification with children. When they're done with them, I don't know if you've seen pictures of children who have been abused with satanic ritual abuse. Basically, they get they're killed. When they've done with them, they would hang them up on meat hooks on the wall. So if the abuse was happening, in the bear pit or in these stately homes, because there were many stately homes that were used for this. And they have wine cellars, dungeons, cellars, that type of thing. Also, going back to Amersham, they were members of the Hellfire Club in Wickham. George Washington was a member of the Hellfire Club in Britain. I'm not sure if he was a member of the Hellfire Club in America, but I think the Hellfire Club's all over the world. But I do know the family I was brought by were members of the Hellfire Club in the Wickham Caves. You can go to the Wickham Caves. It's now a museum, but to believe you me, behind the scenes, there's more going on. What the public see is different, but no one's denying what the Hellfire Club was. It was debauchery, and I do believe paedophilia, you know, everything you could imagine. There were satanic ritual abuse ceremonies taking place in the church at High Wycombe, which is next to the caves. I don't know if anyone's been to High Wycombe, but if you've seen the church on the hill, and there's a golden bull on top of the church, that was very important, very significant for them, the golden bull. I think it was like an energy centre. It's like produces energy. People would say it's just the golden bull. No, it vibrates energy, so they use it for that. And then the altar and all that type of thing. So basically High Wycombe. So you've got the abuse happening there, you've got the Wickham Caves, and then the tunnel system from the caves going across the country and really everywhere. Sorry, I can't name all the places. So that was happening there. So yes, we'll go back to my upbringing. I then realised that the debt, why I was sold for debt, was because my adoptive father, he crashed his car outside a policeman's ball, and he was drunk. He'd been drink driving. There may be more to that story than meets the eye. He may have killed someone. But his brother, who was a Freemason, did a deal to the police at the ball, and he got let off. Now, that was in the 70s. I know drink driving in the 70s was very different to now, but I think it was still quite serious. He also, I know he raped a woman, a girl actually. He got her pregnant. She had the baby. The family tried to pay they bought off the mother and the grandmother. The baby got adopted out. So he then, after having this situation, he was then sent to South Africa, where he met my adoptive mother. Now, the deal was that he would marry this woman, and I'll get to her in a moment, and then they'd have a baby. And he would pass his driving test in South Africa, getting a new driving license. So when he came back here, the other one was gone. So anyway, so he got married in South Africa to this woman. Now, my natural mother officially is my godmother. My natural mother is, I do believe she had twins. She had me and a boy. Basically, when I was put onto the baby farm, she took the boy. I was given to this couple. And from the baby farm, so I was kind of brought up on the baby farm, I don't know, year, 6 months. I wouldn't know. The brother, my twin, he was brought up by her. Now, as I said, she's my godmother. She's still in South Africa. She can't come back because she can't get the British passport. She's not coming here. I believe her son, my brother, he's been drafted into the army now, probably. But that was he would have turned at the age of drafting, I think, just before apartheid finished. I don't know if it's they're still drafting automatically now, but he was going to join the army. So there's more. So what I'm saying is, so yes, she's still in South Africa. So yes, so so basically, we would go to South Africa for holidays, family holidays. We'd meet with her, that type of thing. And so there was, when I went back to South Africa on the family holidays, there would be more abuse over there. Because there was a group, a satanic ritual abuse in South Africa. There would be hunting parties through the private parks, because there are private game reserves in South Africa owned by people, and they would do human hunting there. Plus also shooting game, you know, and lions and that type of thing. So there were tunnels also from Johannesburg all the way through Africa, you know, kind of running alongside the gold mines. Because the gold mines go very, very deep in South Africa. The tunnels also go very, very deep into the ground. So I have been in the gold mines. I have also been in the tunnels. So they kind of run side by side, if you see what I mean. Now, the military were also involved in these type of activities, as far as I know. Because from my experience, these tunnels had military personnel and police, but there were different uniforms. Not just in South Africa, also in Britain too, and around the world and everything. Because I have been to many countries because of the family, well, we used to go to different countries, that type of thing. Now, going back to Whitchurch-on-Thames, basically, they had the Amateur Dramatics group, we had the satanic ritual abuse going on, that type of thing, and we moved from the house in Whitchurch because they decided to have another baby, who's he'd be my cousin, or he's my brother officially. So we moved from there to Woodcote, which is up the hill. Which was, well, there was gun runners in Whitchurch. There was a man who was convicted for gun running to Africa in this very rich village. And then we moved up the hill. There was another gun runner who was convicted as well for gun running to Africa. A bit like the Thatcher story. Same thing, really. So while I was at the school, a IRA cache of bombs were found in Hardwick House's grounds. The cache of weaponry, and it's in the news, you can look it up, basically was found by my stepfather, who is a policeman. My stepfather married my adopted mother, and my stepfather is also connected to the group. And I think he's a Freemason. So basically, there was a lot of gun running and things like that. Now, my parents and I went to London to Harrods And we were there when the Harrods bombing happened by the IRA. We left Harrods, and within just a minute after we left and went into the underground tube, the bomb went off. My parents stood there and said they didn't even know the bomb had gone off because we were in the tube. And they basically said, phew, we managed that. Now, whether they planted something there or whatever, I don't know. But I do believe there's a connection to perhaps that group of freedom fighters, as they call it. I don't know. But there have been many incidents where there's been gun running, drugs, that type of thing. So they were into drugs, I mean, guns, weapons, that type of thing. And then, of course, adrenochrome, child trafficking, human trafficking, that type of thing. And also, perhaps, illegal goods, you name it. You think of any, in the films, the snuff films, that type of thing. So I only have 5 minutes. So we moved to Thiel, which is got a lot of gravel pits there. Now, Thiel, I don't know if you've been to Thiel, but there is a big sort of manor house. It's just near Bucklebury, which is where Kate Middleton comes from, and her family. I worked for the family. They have a shop in Reading, and so I did know her, but I was older than her. I do remember her being at some of the ritual abuse situations. She obviously hasn't said anything. So then the family bought a delicatessen in Windsor, and they bought a coffee shop a tea room in Windsor too, as well. There is a tunnel system going from the delicatessen, which is the coffee shop was below Windsor Castle. If you've been to Windsor Castle, you've got the gates, and then there's, I think it's Prospect Street, was where the delicatessen was, and I don't know what the street's called below the castle. So you got this one, and they sold ice creams there for the public, tourists. Down the hill there was this delicatessen. They changed it into a restaurant eventually, but the Queen Mother, the royal family, the royal household used to get goods delivered from the delicatessen shop. The Queen Mother would order pink gin. I think the royal household ordered pink gin. So, but you have to ask yourself, what was in the boxes? What's pink gin? Okay. Now, they also ordered things like meat products, that type of thing. I do remember going into the grounds of Windsor Castle for some satanic ritual abuse. Not some, so it's replaying it down, sorry. For the satanic ritual abuse in the Windsor Castle grounds. It would be going through the tunnel system up into the castle grounds that way. People have said, have you seen the Queen? Yes, I have. Have I seen the royal family changing, doing anything like this? Yes, I have. I was there when the abuse was happening. Like what Princess Diana said, when she saw them shapeshift. I saw shapeshifting, yes. And I saw that with a lot of the abusers, they would shapeshift. They would get demonic faces. Their whole demeanor would change. They would grow in stature. Now, whether it was lizard, reptilian beings that would just take over the human, but I do know my natural father shapeshifted into a reptilian as well, because his mother, my grandmother, saw a lizard man coming out of the river. But I don't believe she's innocent. I do believe she was part of all of this. She was suffering from senile dementia, so but the thing is, the lizard man would have been my natural father, because it was his house, and he built the house on the Warren in Caversham. And so, yes, so Windsor, I do remember Windsor Castle in the delicatessen. Down at the bottom, there was a door, and then you go into a tunnel and go up to the castle that way. The tunnel would lead to the River Thames, or all around Windsor, that type of thing. So yes, they were supplying to the Windsor Castle any kind of, you think about meat products, alcohol. That's what was written on the boxes. But what was going in the boxes was the vials that were like, vanilla flavouring little bottles, and also human meat. Because you can make salami kind of sausages from human meat. Whether they were feeding the dogs, I don't know. So they sold those businesses in Windsor. Eventually, then we moved to Caversham on Thames. Now, my natural father, as I say, built a house on the Warren, on the riverbank at Reading, Caversham. We lived down the road from him. He became the governor of nearly every secondary school I went to. He was meant to be my uncle. And he didn't really live near these places. It was almost like he was always there. Maybe I was for some reason. So anyway, they then had bought an apartment or rented an apartment at Dolphin Square. I didn't live there. I'm saying the family rented an apartment at Dolphin Square. They also, the group had connections to London, Hemel Hempstead, Hampstead Heath, Richmond Park, Houses of Parliament, all around sort of Knightsbridge, basically London, sorry, Muswell Hill. Muswell Hill was a big one, and Hampstead Heath, Hemel Hempstead. And yes, we would go to places like that for the rituals. It was always about rituals as well, and in London. So then we would go. There was tunnels, obviously, from House of Parliament, and going around London. As I say, Dolphin Square, that type of thing. Kingston upon Thames as well. One of the group worked in a nightclub. He was a manager, and it was Cinderella Rockefeller at Kingston upon Thames. There was a tunnel system going, because obviously he was put there to monitor the tunnel. So he was there guarding that. So Kingston upon Thames, there was a tunnel system to the nightclub, because basically these people are put in places for a reason to monitor what's going on, obviously, to make sure it's all running smoothly. This man also got a job in Heathrow. And actually, Gatwick, Heathrow, and the sort of UK airports, quite a high up job. He worked for SAS airline, and then he worked for Virgin airline, and I think BA. So he was catering, not a pilot or anything. And so he was put there. He was a very useful person to have. Okay, he's now working for a school in the coaching department. He abused me. He was part of the satanic ritual abuse. The thing is, they always get jobs where there are children. My adopted mother, she works as a nursery school teacher, and she's in Spain. She worked at the nursery school teacher in the Whitchurch on Thames, wherever, in South Africa as well, and her mother did as well. So I'm just saying, these people will always work where there are children, get jobs for, with children type of thing. Do I have to
stop you there, Sophia, because the time has gone incredibly fast.
Okay.
We'll agree, and we do have another speaker this afternoon, but this is a very sensitive and deeply personal subject. And I think rather than having a break, it might be helpful that people did have questions yesterday, and I can't imagine they've gone away. I've got questions of my own for the first time this afternoon, and I might kick off the questions if nobody minds. I think we'll then go straight into the questions that anyone might have, just so we don't lose the momentum that Sophia has built up. Yeah, take a seat. Yeah, it's a lot to talk about public. This is the first time that Sophia's talking publicly. She's spoken on camera, but that's a very different matter to talking to other human beings and bearing your soul.
Thank you.
In a room of people that you don't even know. So you've been a great audience, and I think you feel that, don't you?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
So I have a question, which is, I was here yesterday, and I was flitting in and out and doing all my hostess jobs, but I did remember yesterday there was a couple of things that when you went to the police, Thames Police, was it Kingston upon Thames Police?
No. Thames Valley Police. I went to Reading.
Absolutely, and you reported the abuse.
Yes.
And the minute you mentioned Jimmy Savile...
Yes.
Because you said today you weren't believed, but actually yesterday you said you reported it, and then you mentioned Jimmy Savile,
yes.
And all of a sudden it was like this juggernaut swung into action, and suddenly the Met Police were involved.
Right.
And so that's my first question, what happened there? And the second thing was yesterday you did mention going to school with James Casbolt, who I'm sure people here are very familiar with, and is there any way you could elaborate on that?
Sure.
But that's just my questions, but
okay.
We'll take questions from the audience as well, so they're my questions.
The Thames Valley Police, what happened was... I got the memories were coming back, and so I when you reach a certain age, if you've been abused, because you get mind wiped a lot, and you compartmentalise abuse in your brain. So basically, I had my second child, and that triggered the memories to come back. It can be birth of a child, it can be a move, it can be a death of something. Anyway, so I went to the Thames Valley Police to make a statement. I only told them about the ritual abuse. I didn't tell them about the tunnels or the pork farm or anything like that, or the aliens, because we'll get into that later. But I didn't say that, but as soon as I mentioned Jimmy Savile, the police turned it on me. They said I was causing future harm to my children. I needed to see a psychiatrist. They didn't know I was actually a qualified psychotherapist. So I was like, okay, I'll go to a psychiatrist. I can recommend some. They're my colleagues. So they were then they got social services involved, who then immediately slapped a child protection order on, immediately went to put a child protection order on my children, not an order, but they put them on the child protection register. They never got the order. I have to stress that. So basically saying I didn't break any laws. So as soon as I saw where they were going with this, and they dropped Jimmy Savile, I also said that my ex-husband was abused by the same people as me. His brother was murdered by them, and his brother was murdered by them. And I said, are you going to ask him for his statement? And they said no. He has to go to where the abuse happened. I said, it happened here. If they abused me, they've abused him. He was living in Newcastle at the time in Leicester. But the abuse happened to him and his brother in Newcastle and Darlington. And also he came down here, down south. So he would come down south. So he'd be abused in both places as well. But they refused to take his statement. And they also wouldn't listen to him. So anyway, when they were threatening to I knew what they were going to do. They were going to take my children away. Before it got to that point of being legal, we fled. My children had dual nationality. I made sure they had dual nationality to South Africa, and I had dual nationality, and we fled. We weren't breaking any laws. This charity, very nice charity, offered us a safe house. And it's a charity that was started by Sandra Brown, who she believes her father, who was a bus driver, may have been part of murdering Moira Anderson. It's a known case. She started the charity. They offer safe houses, that type of thing. So anyway, we went to the safe house. We got our tickets, we left to South Africa. We never left Heathrow, though. Wouldn't leave my Heathrow. And basically, it was quite a long journey. So we had to go to Holland and then go to South Africa. Well, I'm not going to leave Heathrow. No. So, no, it was Paris, sorry. Went to Paris, then got the plane from Paris to where I was going. And so basically, I found out from the people of the charity in the Safe House that the Met Police went to Scotland and raided the charity office looking for me. I reported the crime to Thames Valley Police, Reading Police, not the Met. Why would the City of London Police chasing me? And they wouldn't go and interview my ex-husband. And so we were crossing borders here. They raided the charity office. They demanded the address of where we were. They didn't know where we were because they said we shouldn't tell them where we were going. They didn't want to know. And that's what we found out. So then, in South Africa, the Met Police found me there. So I only had a PO box address. They didn't know where my house was. I was in a kind of a safe house in South Africa. So when we found out that they were raiding, we got another safe house, stayed there for a couple of weeks, and then flew back here via Holland. Sorry, went to Holland, and basically not Heathrow. So basically, yes, that was it. So that's why I'm saying the police didn't take me seriously. As soon as I mentioned Jimmy Savile, that's what they were doing. Why? I asked people why. I didn't break the law. I haven't done anything. It was like I was being treated like a terrorist or a bank robber. So if I didn't do anything. Sorry.
I think we should open this up to questions because it's a phenomenal story. And if anyone was looking in from the outside, even I come from a very mainstream background, as does Julie earlier, RAF, I'm ex-BBC, I hasten to say, ex-BBC. But with that head on, with a mainstream head, if anybody walked in off the street and listened to that, they'd be like, this woman's nuts. She's nuts. Clearly, she's insane. Clearly, obviously. Despite the amount of detail she's gone into, she's clearly a fantasist, she's clearly insane. I think Tony touched on this yesterday. Clearly, anyone who talks about this kind of stuff must have mental health issues. Well, let's put this to the test. Any questions to see? Yeah, I think this woman is credible, but let's see.
Go on, sorry.
When I was driving down, on the news, there was some woman called Lady Norris who was weeping, right?
Lady Norris?
She's had 44 counts of child abuse, sort of just wiped away.
Right.
Have you ever heard of her?
I've heard of Lady Norris, yes.
Yeah, but you didn't have any dealings with her.
So you're saying she was accused of it, or
yes,
she was a victim?
Apparently 44 people have come forward and accused her of abusing them.
I do know of her, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't know whether she was innocent or...
She was, yes, as was the Marquis of Bath. He's now dead. And the old Duke of Marlborough.
They were innocent.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. They're guilty.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They've wiped it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
The Marquis
Her
of
husband
Bath.
was a high. Do you know? Funny enough, a friend of mine was going to dinner with the Marquis of Bath, and she was so excited.
The one that died last year.
Yeah. And she was so excited about it. She was going on and on and on about him. And she hated him so much during the dinner that they were actually going past the King's Road on the way home, which is where he was living.
Yes.
On the way home to Putney. And she said, no, she wasn't going that way. She wouldn't even have him in her car.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That is what's known in the law as corroborative evidence, isn't it? I mean, you said,
But you asked me another question. Sorry, you can carry on.
Well, it is about James, but I'm very keen to open up
James
to
Casbolt, sorry,
very keen to open up to the audience, actually, and I can see some hands going up. So, Ellis.
Just two bits of information, really. Kenneth Graham, his son drowned at Sanford Lock near Oxford.
His son?
His son.
Yep.
And it's on the gravestone at Holywell Church in Oxford.
Uh-huh.
It's a very haunted place. It's a very strange place,
it
Sanford Lock.
is.
And so is the area where Holywell Church is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm not sure if Kenneth Graham is buried there or not, but
I
he's
don't
definitely on
know.
the gravestone. The other thing is Windsor Castle. I had quite an eventful time there once, and I talked about it on a radio interview I did, but just to keep it short, walking around on the inside, looking around the rooms, in one particular room when you go through, there's a fireplace right at the back of the room. And there are two kind of statuettes both sides of the fireplace. And both of them are the same thing, of fawns, you know, like Pan,
yeah.
the small fawns, each holding a baby, facing the fire.
Yes.
There are photographs of it on the net, but I also put it on my blog. But I just thought it might be of interest.
Thank you very much. Yes. It is.
Thank you, Alice, for it. And Martin, have you got a question? Wait.
Jill Dando.
Wait. I can hear the magic words Jill Dando
Jill
being uttered, and put it on the microphone.
Jill Dando, do you know about her assassination, I assume?
Yes, of course. No.
Connecting with the Cliff Richard situation?
I haven't mentioned him specifically because, because he's still alive and I don't want him seeing me. But, and funny how his name, he used the pseudonym of Kitty, yes, and also Jill Dando. When she got assassinated, the group cheered. They celebrated. And they said, oh, good, we got rid of that one. I was saying the group he brought me. We're talking a village, a town, Reading. Okay, so there's a lot of people. They were celebrating her death. They celebrated Princess Diana's death. They celebrated the World Trade Center. Any death and destruction they celebrated. They didn't like JFK very much, even though he died in the... They celebrated JFK Jr.'s death. Why? I mean, he's a good man, you know. Sorry, go on.
Any more? Oh, yep, one at the back. Yep.
Just thanks.
Hi.
For everything you're doing. I saw
you.
your YouTube videos and I was absolutely touched when I saw them. I was interested about the underground tunnels, and you talked about them going all the way to Blenheim Palace, which brings the Duke of Marlborough, Churchill, the whole thing in. That's not what I wanted to ask you, though. What I wanted to ask you was, you've seen these creatures, you know these monsters, you know them probably better than most people. What do you reckon is the percentage of monster versus human on the planet? Any idea?
Well, I would say, I mean, maybe they're being eradicated as we speak now. Maybe their supply lines are being cut, so they're dying a slow and horrible death. Maybe the thing I can't mention, the cure, I'll call it a cure, is having a good job, doing a good job on eradicating these type of beings, because these type of beings will jump to the chance of taking the cure, because it's like an order. So seriously, I know they do. They take any of the cures that are out there. I can't mention, you know, and so maybe there is another reason for the cure. Perhaps. So these monsters you're talking about, I think, percentage-wise, let's think about the town. My town where I lived in, one town, Reading, probably half the population, every school. Well, I went to 3, and 3 schools, different schools. I went to school in Amman, there again, it was there as well. So, I don't know, the percentage, should we say, rubbish at this, but let's just say 50, maybe 49%. I could be overestimating. Yeah? I mean, it's up to you what you think about the cure, and is it solely to give to these type of beings? Because they do walk among us. Some people can't see them. You could be sitting in a restaurant, and the guy next to you on the table next to you could actually be an alien type of satanic type of being. I do know there's one Satanist who came out to disclose about Satanism. He's turned his back on it. He used to be a high priest. He said it's estimated that 20% of the population in America are Satanists. Police, teachers, doctors, surgeons. There was quite a high number who were Satanists. How many Freemasons are there? You know, if you look at all of it, you have to kind of think, but the police are heavily involved, unfortunately, and the military. Because, you know, the Navy, they made Satanism an official religion. UK Colin mentioned that, Brian Garish. He said that the Navy agreed to Satanism. So I don't know if all the Navy are Satanists or in the British Navy. The British Navy. I don't know about America. I think. Was it America as well?
My father was in the Navy. He would have absolutely been appalled.
Well,
he went to Porton Down, you know, as part of his job. And he couldn't tell us what he saw, but he was absolutely aghast. He said, how could any human being even think of doing anything like that?
Well, one of my grandfathers was in the Royal Navy in the war, and he got posted into South Africa, and when they were doing Japan, so they took a Japanese war boat and everything, but he was part of the group. So he had colleagues in the Navy who were into all of this. So it kind of like they find each other. And maybe your father never saw that group. Maybe he was... Oh, there you go then. Maybe he was ostracized. But they find each other. Yeah? So... Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of military people who've been abused, who've connections to the military.
Sorry, I'm thinking. How has it made you feel? I mean, I had a very small thing when I was about 6 on holiday with my grandmother, and I think I can sort of remember coming back feeling very unhappy. But like you say, it goes to the back of your mind. And then when I got to 10 at boarding school, I suddenly felt different to other people. And it wasn't until I went up to London with my mother and we were having a treat day, and we were coming out of some shop or other, and we walked across Oxford Street, and I burst into tears and told her about it. And she said, oh, I knew something would happen. My mother was awful. And then afterwards I thought, why didn't you talk to me about it? Because afterwards I felt totally different about it. Mm-hmm. But it made me feel different and terribly upset. I mean, how has it made you feel?
Well, I think when you're brought up in it, it sounds awful, but you're used to it. You also don't know any better. And it's almost like if you...
Did you feel guilt then?
Oh, yes.
Do you still feel that, or have you got rid of it?
No, I still have guilt, yes. This is why I did this. I was feeling guilty for James Casbolt. Because if the group or my adoptive father filmed that film that James Casbolt mentioned, and what did they do to him? As I say, he lived around the corner from me. He's younger than me. We were in the same school, which he mentioned, you know, the kids would be taken off in minibuses, you know, and they went to the TA barracks there, which there is a lot of connections to TA barracks in Reading. And also, I feel guilty for him. I feel guilty for my own children. Not that I took my children away from it, but they've had to endure parents, both of us, who had suffered, you know, and I feel guilty for all. I have survivor guilt, you know, because a lot of people died, and it's still happening.
And actually, I hope you don't mind, because you did bring your daughter's here today. She just was sitting somewhere.
She's gone outside.
She's gone outside. She's here.
You're not going to believe I've got a daughter.
She exists. I've met her, and she's lovely. She's lovely. So I interject.
So I think she's gone outside.
She's gone outside.
You can meet her. She's around, isn't she?
And she's lovely, really grounded, lovely young girl. So your parenting skills do you credit.
Thank you.
I mean, my question leads on from Jane's, actually, unless anyone's got any others. But and you touched on it. It's like,
yes.
to speak out about something like this, the way you have, and to speak so eloquently in such intricate detail. One of the bar staff actually remarked on the detail that you were speaking in. She's saying if you weren't speaking in such intricate detail, she might not believe you.
Oh, okay.
So but to speak out about this, and to people say, why, they're just making it up. Why on earth, if you're going to make something up, why on earth would you make this up? Why would you make it up? Because there's still part of me that thinks, is this a true story? Because it's so out of my realm of reality.
I'm not doing it for money.
Also the thing about why people don't come forward with historic rapes and things like that is for some extraordinary reason, even with small children, you feel as though there's an element of your fault, that
yes.
There's something about you that's made this happen.
Yeah,
and all girls feel like that as well.
Yeah,
and I think young men as well.
Children will always blame themselves for, now putting my psychotherapist hat on, children will always blame themselves for divorce. Well, we as children, we blame ourselves as kids for even the pet dog dying or the parents getting divorced. Because when we're children, we can't comprehend that we couldn't control it. So that's what children do. And then we go into the inner child work as an adult, and you go around forgiving. You forgive yourself, and you tell your inner child, I forgive you. It's part of the therapy I've been doing on myself. I forgive myself. It was not in my control. Because children who abuse, they will think they caused it, any death or anything. So that's natural. It's a natural thing for humans, I think, as children, till we get the adult brain to explain it.
It's something that ought to be out there for the public, because
maybe there's a reason
nobody realises that that's the case.
No.
And so when a girl comes forward and say, 15 years ago, he raped me, and people say, oh yeah, like now you want money. But if they realise that this is actually a thing,
mm-hmm.
and that historic rape, and things that happen to children, all this kind of thing, that is something that affects us all, I think people would feel very differently.
As a psychotherapist, I don't work for the NHS. I've never worked for the NHS because of the stipulations they put on the mental health. So I refuse to work for them. But in the mental health community, you're not allowed to say, go work on your inner child, go forgive yourself. I ignored that. I tell people, go and do this, because it helped me. And yes, it's hidden from us to heal ourselves and say to our inner child, it's not your fault the dog died. It is not your fault you found out that man with the white bit, no, not well that, yes, or it's not your fault to find out about that ho man and he's not real. I'm not going to say, So it's like a child will blame themselves, yes, but we're not allowed to in the mental health community to guide people, in the NHS that is, guide people down that path you're saying. Many people have tried. Louise O'Hay.
Yeah.
Just trying to think of all of them, but they not work. The other people who get berated, and then the mental health is all about drugs.
Yeah.
It's all about pumping you full of drugs. Shut up, go away. Yeah. And I will say, with the group, the children I went to school with. Some have gone to prostitution. One's been diagnosed as schizophrenic. And a lot of them are like drug addicts, that type of thing. They come from a very, very wealthy village. The vicar's children, they went off the rails. Yeah. His wife is an atheist, by the way. I know. So, the kids, well, I don't know, but vicar's children, they usually do, don't they? They usually go off somewhere else, sort of thing.
Just one final question, and then I'll open it up again. It's been aching to come out since you were speaking, and what you're talking about is satanic, dark energy. What we're currently going through in the world seems like very satanic, dark energy. You seem to have found a way of coming out of the other side, or at least speaking publicly. It takes a great deal of courage, and I think courage is how we're going to beat this. Do you think that the two things are linked, what we're going through now on a global scale and all this ridiculousness, cover your face, do what you're told, shut up, shut up, shut up. We'll tell you where you can spend your money, what time you can go out, who you can be seen with. Sounds very similar to abuse to me.
Yes.
Can it be beaten?
I believe it can. I've been guided all along this journey with what's going to happen. I trust it because not only am I a psychotherapist, I'm also a psychic. I'm not mentioning who I work for because I can't, but I am a psychic, medium psychic. Now, I have taught the spirits who come to me are my dead brother-in-law and my dead father-in-law and a dead a guy who was killed as well. They come and guide and stuff. Basically, what we're going through right now, we're going to get through it. This is what I'm told. This is under God's hand. I'm not particularly religious. As you know, I wasn't brought up with religion. I'm only now learning about religion. And apparently we're under God's hand. We're going to come out of this. Humans have to, the demonic energies, the demons, whatever you want to call them, they're dying. They're dying a death. You ask me, how many are there? And I've been told they're dying, they're going. People are aware of the truth, and the more people like myself and other truthers come out, because it's coming out more and more, and if you think about it, and you may like him like Marmite, or you may hate him like Marmite, but Trump was the only world leader, and I'm not evangelizing him, but think about it, he's the only world leader who cut down child trafficking and human trafficking. He was the only one that brought it to the surface. How many people knew before he came along about this? He made laws, yeah? Like I said, hate him or like him, he's done more for people like me than any other world leader.
Off, it's not so available. Is it true that the adrenochrome is
I don't know.
Not as available? Because I remember watching things where...
Well, the EpiPens, you can't get EpiPens anymore. The adrenaline, there's a shortage of EpiPens. Well, then we had I don't know. I mean, our children, is there still human trafficking? Are there still tunnels? Now, there were earthquakes in this country, Leighton Buzzard, and I know there's a tunnel there, and also Milton Keynes. I never mentioned Milton Keynes yet, right? But if you see Milton Keynes is up here, and then the earthquake is Leighton Buzzard, and I thought, good, maybe they're hitting those tunnels or something. Maybe they're hitting the source, yeah, to prevent the adrenochrome. I don't know. But you look on eBay, you can get it.
Do you think the white flag is working behind the scenes?
I hope so. It's hard, isn't it? Because you think, oh, are they there or not there? I don't know. But I know on eBay and Amazon you can get adrenochrome products. You can get T-shirts, cups, mugs. Have you seen them? Oh, yeah. So people poo-poo it and they say, no, there's no such thing. You can get keychains, key rings, that type of thing. Why is that? And also you've got the celebrities talking about using human parts. Sandra Bullock for her face. I think maybe it's reducing now because it's coming more in the open. Maybe we'll see, if you look at the celebrities, are they going downhill? Because it'll show in the face.
Yeah. Any more questions for this amazing woman? Oh, here we go at the front, and then I'll come to you at the back there as well.
Yeah, Sophia, this may be a subject of next year, I don't know, but if you have experience of the trip chair, could you talk about that please?
Yes. You want the trip chair? Okay. Well, I have seen diagrams from Barry King and various other people, James, that type of thing. The trip chair is, I describe it like a dentist chair that can rise up and down. You know, that's the way I describe the trip chair. It had, for me, there was cushioning on the back and everything, like a dental chair or hypnotherapist or something, or beauty therapist. I don't know why some of them have got nothing. Well, it's just metal or something, probably part of the torture. But the trip chair, you get strapped in. I got strapped in and then hooked up by a machine on my head, probes. You know, like the probes you can have put on like a headband here for me. They would do things like probing with like a gun type thing, probing to scan people, me, that type of thing. Then also this chair would be used to travel with the mind to like an avatar. You know, you've got an avatar who's doing, you know, you're thinking, and the avatar's having the experience. So you can have 4, or you can have 1. And your mind, my mind was controlled, doing links with that. That's what my experience was with trip chair. Plus, they would use the trip chair to torture people. Like I said, some chairs maybe don't have any cushioning. But I used to see the torture happening. You know, pulling of teeth or, pulling of teeth, sexual abuse, that type of, or examining sexual organs, that type of thing. They get a kick out of it. Now, if anyone's doubting this, there was a place in Holland that got raided where they had a torture room. That was last year, I think. I don't know if anyone saw it. And they raided it, and it was all covered in plastic sheeting. And they had it looked like a dental chair in there. And that was a torture room. The police raided, and so, just saying.
Okay, we're running out of time now, so I think we'll take the last couple of questions, and then we will have to break. It's a shame, because I can sense there are a few more, but over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for your presentation today. I think it's very brave of you, which leads on to my question, which was, how are you protecting yourself now? Because you're obviously talking to us. This is going to be, I assume, on YouTube or, you know, on some sort of video channel. So, you know, you obviously have to look after yourself and your family.
I say bring it on. They've taken everything. They have taken everything from me. I have nothing to lose, right? So when a man or a human has nothing to lose, what's the matter? They've taken my money, they've taken my businesses, my careers, my pets, my houses. I had a clinic, a psychotherapy clinic. I've had many businesses. My husband and I had a business. We lost it because of what's going on. I have spent a fortune running around the world from the Met Police and trying to set up home time and time and time again. I've got to a point now where I'm like, bring it on. Okay? And you might say life or death or anything. Well, they're trying to kill us anyway. If they don't give us the cure, if we all say no, they're going to try it anyway. What have I got to lose?
Very well said. So it's the last question of the day to Tony Chin. Oh, you don't want a question? Oh, it's passed. Oh, maybe you've answered it already. Well, that's a fantastic place to end, I think. Bring it on. All of us. What have we got to lose and what have we got to gain out of this? Well, very well said words there, Sophia. And I'm going to bring Sophia's daughter, Olivia, to the stage so you can see what a wonderful mum she is and what a wonderful girl she's raised. So, give your mum a kiss. Oh, yeah. Despite everything this woman has been through, she's a great parent of her own. Look, and that's the testimony of what? The human spirit. Human spirit. So a round of applause for these wonderful women and the bravery.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So we're nearly there. We are nearly there. This was our last but one speaker of the day, and time has flown so amazingly quickly. We've got our lovely, energetic, inspiring, what did you say to me yesterday? Exceptional human experiencer, Tony Topping, who after a short break is going to lead us into what, I mean, you couldn't imagine a finer session to end this conference. We're going to do some remote viewing. What the hell will we see? This man hopefully will guide us. So a short break and then back. Thank you. And thank you again, Sophia and Olivia.